This is the worst thing that's happened to me in a year. For 28 years, I lived completely sure of who I was. And then because of one failing liver, it turned out my entire life was a total mix-up in the maternity ward. I'm not their son. They're not my parents. And now I'm torn between two worlds where one brother hates me, and the biological parents I found didn't even know they lost me. For them, it was the same devastating blow as it was for me. My name is George. I was born in a small town in Ohio where the streets are wide and the people are simple. Dad worked as a mechanic in an auto shop. He'd come home with black oil up to his elbows, sit at the table and tell stories about fixing some old Chevy that day. He was a solid guy with thick mustache and a voice that could drown out an engine. Mom was an elementary school teacher, always smelled like chalk and apples. She'd get up at dawn, make breakfast, kiss the top of my head and whisper that I was her favorite boy. Our house was old, 2-story, with a creaky staircase and a porch where neighbors gathered in the evenings. On Sundays, we'd barbecue in the yard. Dad started the coals, Mom chopped vegetables, and I'd run around with our dog Buddy who caught frisbees. Life was predictable, cozy, like an old sweater. I grew up like all the boys in our neighborhood. School, football on Fridays, first fights behind garages where we'd smoke stolen cigarettes and brag about girls. At school, they teased me for my dark curly hair. Everyone else was light-haired like my parents, with blue eyes. But I didn't think much of it. Mom would say, "Genes are tricky. Somewhere in the ancestors there was a Southerner." I believed her. Finished school, went to college for engineering, worked part-time in Dad's shop, learned to fix engines, laughed at his jokes, helped Mom in the garden. Everything felt right in its place. Then I moved to Cincinnati. Found a job at a construction firm, designing bridges and buildings, rented an apartment downtown, bought a used Ford. Fridays, beer with co-workers at the bar. Weekends, calls home. Dad complained about his back. Mom sent photos from the garden. New flowers she planted in memory of you. I was content. Thought this is adult life. But sometimes at night, I'd wake up feeling like something was missing. Like the puzzle didn't fit. Update 1. A week has passed since the last events. I haven't slept for nights. Right now, I'm sitting in the car, looking at the stars, remembering childhood, how Dad taught me to ride a bike, how Mom sang lullabies. Everything felt fake. In the morning, I hired a private detective, paid my last savings. He dug for a month, hospital records, archives, interviews, brought a folder. Here, mix up in the maternity ward. 2 boys, 1 nurse, mistake. Michael, that's what the other one was called. Lived in Kentucky, in a rich family. Photos, blue eyes, light hair, exact copy of my dad, and his parents, my biological ones. Dark hair, brown eyes. I looked at their photos and felt a stab in the heart. This could have been my life. Big house, private schools, trips. Instead, modest shop, college loans. I wrote to Michael, explained. Waited for a reply like on pins and needles. He agreed to meet. But what if he refuses to donate? What if this is the end for Dad? If there are changes, I'll definitely write. Update 2. We met a few days ago. Roadside cafe on the state line. He came in a suit. I was in jeans. We sat down, looked at each other, and hugged. He was crying. Said he grew up in luxury. Parents demanded perfection. He became a lawyer, but inside, emptiness. I told him about my house, barbecues, Buddy. We laughed through tears. Michael agreed to tests, and they confirmed the switch. His blood matched Dad's. He agreed to the transplant. I was grateful to tears. But inside, anger grew. Why didn't anyone notice? Why did the hospital hide it? He gave me the address of his parents, my real ones. I drove there. But fear was choking me. What if they reject me? What if Michael changes his mind? I'll write later how it went. Update 3. It happened. I went to the biological parents. The house was huge, columns, pool, garden with fountains. I stood at the door, hands shaking, pressed the bell. A woman opened, my eyes, my hair. She saw me and froze. Then her face twisted in pain. She didn't fall to her knees, didn't hug me, just stood holding the door frame, tears streaming down her cheeks. You're ours, she whispered. I nodded. She cried, but not from joy, from shock. Dad came out, gray-haired, tall, looked at me, and there was no recognition in his eyes, only horror. They hadn't been looking for me. For 28 years, they lived with Michael, believed he was their son, never doubted, never felt something was wrong. For them, Michael was their blood. And now a stranger stood in front of them, who looked like their son, but wasn't him. They pulled me into the living room, sat down. Long silence. Then the biological mom cried harder. We didn't know. We thought everything was right. 28 years. We loved him like our own. Dad was silent, but his hands shook. They showed albums, photos of Michael, on horses, in Europe, on yachts. But in their eyes there was no joy, only guilt. I sat there, tears flowing, felt a connection, but also emptiness. They weren't waiting for me. I was a blow to them that destroyed their world. They loved Michael, and now they learned he wasn't theirs. Update 4. Something's wrong. I'm worried Michael might change his mind about being a donor. Michael supported it first. Called, asked about Dad, but then became cold. Sent a letter. You're a scammer. Want money. If you approach my parents, I'll destroy you. Lawyers, police. I didn't believe it. Called, no answer. Another message. Last warning. I saw cameras at their house. He was watching, protecting his inheritance. He hated me. Why? We cried together. And now, threats. Biologicals called, come. I lied. Work. But inside, tearing apart. The operation was approaching. Michael agreed to donate, but warned, after this, disappear. Dad was in the hospital. Mom never left his side. What if the truth kills him? Update 5. The operation went through. Michael gave part of his liver. Dad survived. I sat by the bed holding his hand. He smiled. Thank you, son. But in his eyes, a question. I cried. I love them. But now I know the truth. Biologicals called, sent messages. But every time I answered, their voice had pain. They didn't know how to be. Michael is their son. And I, a reminder of the mistake. I didn't visit. Only secret calls. She cried, we don't sleep at night. We lost everything. Update 6. A year has passed, working remotely, writing a book, visit the old ones, they hug me. To biologicals, no. Michael sends threats. At night I wake up. What if Dad hadn't gotten sick? I'd have lived a lie? I couldn't stop. The truth wouldn't let go. I started digging deeper, not just about my switch, but everything that happened in that hospital in the 90s. Found closed forums where people with similar stories gathered. Read all night. One man wrote that after discovering the switch, he lost his job, wife, meaning of life, and eventually took his own life. Another woman told how her parents rejected her after a DNA test because she was always a stranger. Another family sued and won but lost everything: health, money, relationships. Every story was like a punch to the gut. I understood. I'm not alone. But that didn't calm me. It scared me. I contacted a lawyer specializing in medical errors. He said, "Strong case. There are precedents. The hospital closed long ago, but the holding company is still alive and afraid of publicity." We gathered evidence. I contacted that very nurse. She was over 70. Lived in a nursing home in Indiana. When I called, she was silent for a long time, then cried. Said, "That night was a nightmare. 2 boys, both screaming. I hadn't slept for 3 days. Switched the tags. Realized the next day, but was afraid to say. Thought no one would notice." She begged forgiveness. I didn't know what to say. Anger mixed with pity. We found 2 more people affected in the same hospital that same year. One woman switched with a girl, another guy, given to another family in the neighboring state. We united, created a group in a closed chat, shared documents, memories, fears. Some suggested staying silent. Why dig it up? Some wanted a big scandal. I was in the middle, wanted justice, but was afraid the truth would finish off my parents, both sets. The lawyer filed a class action lawsuit. We collected maternity ward records, testimonies, medical files. The press picked it up. Reporters called my home. "Tell your story." I refused, afraid Michael would see and carry out threats. But inside grew the feeling, I have to do this. Not for money. For those who didn't live to see the truth. Update 7. The court hearing happened. The room was full. I sat on the witness stand, told everything, from the first doctor's call to Michael's last letter. Biological parents were in the room, my old ones too. They sat in different rows. But when I spoke, both cried. The holding offered a settlement, $4 million for all victims. We agreed, divided the money. I took my share, bought a house in Columbus, paid for therapy, helped Dad with treatment. Michael came to one of the hearings, sat in the back row. When I came out, he approached, eyes red, said, "I was afraid of losing them, afraid you'd take everything." We hugged. First time since that night in the cafe. He apologized. Not right away, but he did. Update 8. 2 years have passed. I travel. Went to Italy, roots from the DNA test, came back. Organized the first joint family meeting. Awkward. Laughter through tears. 2 dads sat at the table talking fishing. 2 moms baked pies in one kitchen. Michael came with his wife and kids. We talked for real. He said, "You're not the enemy, you're a brother." The book came out. People write, "The worst thing I've read this year." For me, salvation. I help other switch victims, run a support group. Sometimes they call at night. I found out yesterday what to do. I answer, breathe, and keep going. Now at 30, I look back. The switch stole my childhood, but gave me 2 families. Grateful to Dad, he's alive. To biologicals, they didn't search. But when I came, their world collapsed, and they're trying to pick up the pieces. To Michael, became a brother through pain. Life goes on. Found a girl who understands. Planning kids. But the echo of the past sometimes returns. At night, in silence. What would you do? If your brother threatened to destroy you, biological parents didn't search for you, and the truth tore everyone's heart apart? Would you go all the way to court? Would you forgive? Or would you just disappear to not hurt anyone? Write in the comments. Your story might help someone not go crazy from loneliness.